Hey everyone, Quintin Anderson here with Eagle 3D Streaming. Today we've got an awesome tutorial lined up where we will walk you through two different pixel streaming setups. First, we'll show you how to stream one session to multiple devices at the same time, perfect for collaborative sessions with colleagues. Then in part 2, we'll show you how to give each device its own unique stream using a powerful tool called a Matchmaker. By the end of this video, you'll know how to pixel stream the same Unreal Engine session to multiple devices at once and how to pixel stream unique sessions to multiple devices simultaneously. Let's dive right in. In this first section, I'm going to show you how to stream a single pixel streaming session to multiple devices at the same time. To follow along, you'll need a server with a static IP address and a GPU that can run an Unreal Engine application. For this demo, I'll be using AWS, but feel free to use any server provider you prefer. If you'd like to follow along using AWS, we've got a full step-by-step tutorial on setting up pixel streaming in AWS. You'll find the link in the description below. In order to stream the same session to multiple devices at once, the first step is to set up local pixel streaming. This helps confirm that your Unreal Engine app and pixel streaming configuration are working correctly. So let's start by setting up local pixel streaming. In my example, I'm going to be using AWS, but feel free to use whatever cloud you'd like. If you are going to use AWS, make sure that your driver is properly installed for the GPU that you're going to be using. If you don't know how to do that, check in the description below and I provide a URL on how to set up your driver for AWS. Okay, so that's the first thing to double check. Make sure that you have the drivers installed. The second thing that you need, obviously, is your Unreal Engine build. Now, this build is built from Unreal Engine Editor, exported for Windows with the pixel streaming plugin enabled. And today I'm going to show you how to set up the Unreal Engine app as well as the signaling server using a method of creating bat files as a way to start your signaling server and UE app. So it's a little bit different of an approach and it makes it a little bit easier for us to control different settings. The first thing that I'm going to do is let's go ahead and install the pixel streaming servers so that we're able to pixel stream. The first thing that I do is I double click on the name of my project. I go to samples, pixel streaming, web servers, and then I double click on get ps servers.bat. I select run, and then I let this finish installing. Once that's finished installing, then let's go ahead and set up the signaling server. In order to do that, I double click on signaling web server. Then I go to platform scripts. I go to CMD, and then I double click on setup.bat. Once that's finished, you should see a black command window run and then disappear. And then once that's finished, now let's start both the UE app and the signaling server. As you may know, you need both the UE app and the signaling server both to be running in order to pixel stream. And you cannot run just the regular UE app because pixel streaming isn't set up for this. And so let's go ahead and create a bat file that will allow us to run the pixel streaming servers with this UE app. In order to do that, let's first open up the root folder of my build, which I have right here. And then the next thing that I need to do is I need to click on View and make sure that this is enabled, File Name Extension. If it's not enabled, you won't be able to see the extensions of all the file names. But in order for us to make a bat file easily, let's make sure File Name Extensions is enabled and let's create our first bat file. We're going to create two bat files total, one for the UE app and one for the signaling server. Let's first start by creating the bat file for the UE app by right-clicking, selecting New, and then Text Document. Let's rename this document Start UE, and then let's change the extension to .bat. And then I'll press Enter. You'll see this prompt and just say yes, and I have my UE bat file. Now, let's open that bat file using Notepad. And the way that I have to do this is I click on Start, and then I will open up Notepad, and then I will go to File, Open, Desktop. I will select my build folder root file. Then I go to All Files so that I can see all files. and then I will double click on start UE.bat. This will open the bat file, which is empty, which makes sense. And then I need to paste in the pixel streaming commands. I've already pre-made the commands here, which I will include in the description. So let's just select all of this, copy it, and then paste it into our bat file. And before we close and save, let's just look at what we did. The first thing that's important is we actually tell it to run a executable, and the name of it corresponds to the name of your UE app. So, for example, if your UE app name was My App instead, then you wouldn't actually use this. You would change it to whatever the name of your app is. Just keep that in mind when you're setting this up to make sure that the name of your UE executable actually corresponds with the name that you put into your start UE.bat file. The other thing to note is I'm also including render off screen. This allows the UE app to run in the background and you won't actually see the visuals run on the server. And this will be important, as you'll see in a moment. Once I've confirmed that I pasted this into my bat file, I just want to make sure that it's saved, and then I'll click close. All right, so now let's double click the bat file and see what happens. So I've just double clicked it, and we'll see this command window open up. And it may appear like nothing has actually happened. And again, keep in mind, since we've added this flag, render off screen, you won't see your UE app running. The way that we can confirm, however, that it is running is right-click on your taskbar, select Task Manager, then go to Windows Command Processor, expand that, and you'll see that the UE app is indeed running. The next thing that we need to do is we need to start the signaling server. We need both the UE app and the signaling server running in order to pixel stream. So always just remember you actually need two apps running to pixel stream. The way that we'll create the bat file is the exact same for the signaling server. I'll go to New, Text Document, and let's call this Start Signaling Server. I'll change this to, again, BAT. I'll say yes. Then I'll go into Notepad. I will open that file by showing all files and then double clicking on Start Signaling Server. And then I've pre-made the command that we need to paste. Of course, this will be in the description. I select all of that and I paste it into here. And let's just check again what we're doing. So this is a PowerShell command with a few commands right here. And then the important thing is it actually points to the application that we're running. And well, how do we know where this is and where this is located? This location is going to be different for you, and the way that you identify that is fairly simple. I'll just minimize all this for a moment. The first thing to do is to open up your Unreal Engine build files, like I have right here. Then double click on Stream Test 54. Then double click on Samples. And basically what I'm doing is I'm just navigating to where that application is. So I double click on Pixel Streaming, Web Servers. I'll go to Signaling Web Server, and then I'll go to Platform Scripts, CMD, and then you will see right here, Start Signaling Server.ps1. So what you'll want to do to make sure that you have the proper folder location is go to this file explorer, and then in this white area right here, just left click, and that will highlight the entire folder path, and just copy that, and then select the folder location, which you'll see right here, and paste that in there. Now, you may be wondering at this point, well, why didn't you paste this in as well? Whenever you select the folder location, it will not select the name of your app. So the second thing that we need to do is copy the name of the app, which will be Start Signaling Server, and paste that in. And notice when I paste it in, it doesn't include the extension. So you'll just have to also then type .ps1. Okay. So when you're finished, you should now have the folder location that corresponds to your unique folder location. And again, just keep in mind, it's not going to be the exact same as what I'm showing you in this demo. It's going to be based on where you saved your Unreal Engine file and the name of the Unreal Engine file. All right, so now I'll just go ahead and oh, make sure that I'm in. Yeah. So I'll just go ahead and make sure that I actually have this updated in my bat file, which I do. So now I have the proper location and everything. So I will go ahead and click save and close it. And let's go ahead and close this too. And then I will navigate back to my root folder and you'll see that I have start signaling server.bat. Let's go ahead and double click on that. Okay. And you now see that we have the WebSockets listening on the specified ports and HTTP listening on 80. So we do know that the signaling server is indeed running. This is essentially how you'll be able to check and confirm that it's running. Also, just double check and make sure your Unreal Engine application is still running. You can do that by going into Task Manager and confirming that you see the UE app running. And now all it's left to do is to pixel stream locally. And again, we need both the signaling server running and the UE app running before we can pixel stream. The way to pixel stream is let's just open up a browser like so, and I'll type in localhost, localhost, and then I'll press enter and you'll see the click to start. And when I click to start, then the pixel stream has begun. So in this section, I've showed you how to pixel stream locally. Now let's take it a step further and let's go over how to now pixel stream over the internet. Now that we are pixel streaming locally, let's take the next step and pixel stream over the internet. In order to do that, let's first go over a quick checklist on the things that we need in order to pixel stream over the internet. The first thing that you're going to need is a static public IP address. If you're using AWS, this is going to be displayed in the top right corner of your screen. You can see that I have my IP address right here. If you're not using AWS, one way for you to determine if you have a static IP is just by opening up a browser tab and typing what is my IP and then clicking on what is my IP address and it will provide it. And you can see that this IP address matches the public IP address listed here on AWS. The second thing that I'm going to do, and obviously this is just for demonstrative purposes so that we can move through this demo as quickly as possible, I'm going to temporarily disable the firewall. Now, of course, you'll need to discuss with your network policy administrative team to make sure that you have the proper network configuration on your end. But just for this demo, I'm going to uh, disable the firewall just so we move through this as quickly as possible. The way I did that was I just went to Windows and clicked Firewall, and I've gone to these settings and I've turned all of them off. Another thing that you'll need to do, and this is specific to AWS, is you'll need to configure your security group to have all ports open. Again, discuss this with your IT team before doing something like this. And if you need a tutorial on how to configure a security group, I'll provide a link in the description below in order for you to do this for AWS. Okay, so now that I have my network set up and I know my IP address, let's go ahead and start the signaling server and the Unreal Engine. I have my two bat files right here. And if you're just hopping in on this tutorial and in this video, go back and check and see how we created these bat files. It's in a few sections before so that you know how these are created. But for now, I have my two bat files and let's go ahead and start them both so that we have both the signaling server running. So I'll double click on start signaling server to get that running. And I know that it's now running. And now let's go ahead and start Unreal as well. So I'll double click on that, start Unreal, and you'll see this command screen or command prompt running. And now let's just do a quick test locally to make sure everything is running properly. And I see the click to start, which means I know everything is running properly. Okay, so everything is configured on the server side. So I have Unreal and the Unreal Engine app running. Now I'm going to open up a browser tab on my device and let's go ahead and start pixel streaming. The way that I do that is I go to my browser tab and I enter in the public IP address of my pixel streaming server. And keep in mind, this is the IP address that I had mentioned to capture on your pixel streaming server. I go ahead and I just enter in that IP address into the browser tab and I press enter. You'll see this screen where it says click to start. And then if I go ahead and click to start, then the stream will actually begin. And so now I am pixel streaming over the internet, which is very awesome. Just a couple recap before we move on. So now we have, if we kind of think about what we've created, we have the Unreal Engine app and the signaling server running on a server in the cloud. And because that server has a static public IP address attached to it, we can simply enter in that IP address into our browser tab on any device anywhere in the world, and we're able to connect to that pixel streaming server, which is awesome. And now in the next section, let's go over how to pixel stream the same shared experience to multiple devices. Now that we've successfully set up pixel streaming over the internet, let's move on to streaming the same session to multiple devices at the same time. The process is actually very straightforward. The first thing you'll need is a second device, so now you have two devices ready to connect. Next, go into your server and let's start the Unreal Engine application. Go ahead and start that. And let's go ahead and start the signaling server as well, just like we did in the other videos. So we'll go ahead and start that as well. Okay, so now that we have the signaling server and UE app running, one of the things I always like to do is just go into my browser and type in localhost to make sure to confirm that pixel streaming is indeed up and running. Okay, so once both are running, here's how multi-device streaming works. Let's first go to your first device. On your first device, open a browser tab like I have right here and enter in the server's IP address. So I'll go ahead and enter in again the 54.93.111.79. This will start the stream. As you can see, the session is now live on the first device. Now, let's move to the second device. Again, open a browser and type in the exact same server IP address. And you'll notice I type in the 54.9993.111.179. And you'll notice that the same session is now streaming here as well. If we take a step back and look at what's happening in the architecture, the Unreal Engine application is running on the server, producing a single stream. That stream can be requested by multiple devices. Any device that enters the server's IP address in the browser can connect to that same stream. This means that you can share your server's IP with multiple people anywhere in the world, and they'll all be able to connect simultaneously for a collaborative streaming session. I recommend experimenting with different devices, testing latency, and trying out how many users can connect at once. This will give you a better feel for how the feature performs in different scenarios. Most importantly, have fun streaming to multiple devices at the same time. If you want an easy way to stream the same session to multiple devices at the same time, try Eagle 3D Streaming's meeting feature. You can simply generate one link, and our system will ensure that your Unreal Engine session is replicated across all connected devices. Try our meetings feature today. That's the proper approach for collaborative sessions. In this section, I'm going to show you how to pixel stream unique sessions to multiple devices at the same time. To follow along, you'll need 3 servers. 2 with GPUs for Unreal Engine streaming, and 1 with a decent CPU for the Matchmaker. Make sure all servers have static IP addresses. Here's how it works. Previously, we streamed one server feed to many users by simply entering that server's IP address. But now we want each user to have their own dedicated session. That's where the matchmaker comes in. It keeps track of all connected servers and their availability. When a user requests a stream, the matchmaker routes them to an open server, ensuring each session is unique and only streams to one device at a time. Without a matchmaker, you'd have to manually share different IP addresses with different users for each to have a unique streaming session. With the matchmaker, everyone connects to the matchmaker's IP and it automatically assigns them to an available streaming server. So, in order to stream unique sessions to multiple devices simultaneously, let's first begin by setting up the matchmaker. Here you can see on my screen that I am in the matchmaker server. One of the most important things that you'll need to have is to make sure that the matchmaker has a public IP address, which you can see right here. The second is just in terms of, what kind of computer do you need for the matchmaker? You don't need much. I think this has maybe two CPU cores, so you just need, a machine that has a little bit of CPU power. The next thing also important to note, and obviously this is just for demonstrative purposes, so we don't get hung up on ports getting blocked, is I have disabled the firewall, but you'll need to obviously discuss with your network administrator on the proper configuration. Okay, so now that we kind of have an idea of the setup and the computer that being used for the matchmaker, let's go ahead and start the matchmaker on the server. The way that I do that is I first need my build files on the matchmaker server, which you can see I have right here. The next thing that I need to do is let's navigate to the matchmaker folder I go to the Unreal Engine project name, then to samples, pixel streaming, web servers, and this time I'm going to matchmaker. Then I double click on platform scripts, CMD, and then let's first double click on setup and we'll wait for the setup to finish. Once the setup's finished, now let's double click on run. And we can see that the matchmaker is now running and it's listening for HTTP requests on port 90. Okay, now that we have the matchmaker running, we need to do some configuration to the servers, the streaming servers as well. So if you think about it, right now we have a matchmaker that's sitting there waiting for streaming connections. But in order for the matchmaker to know that a streamer exists, we have to specify on that streamer the IP address of the matchmaker so that the matchmaker knows who to connect to. In order to do that, let's now go to the first streaming server, which I now have on my screen. And let's again open up the build files. And let's go to the name of our Unreal Engine project. Again, to samples, pixel streaming, web servers. Let's go back to signaling web server. And we need to modify this config.json file. The way I'm going to do that is I'll just go into Notepad and I will open that config file by going to open. I will go to File Explorer and left click in this white area so that I can select my folder location. Let's go back to Notepad. I will paste that location in, and then I will go down to text documents and show all files instead. And let's double click on the JSON and take a look. So obviously what we see is some key values for some configurations possible for the signaling server. The two that we are most interested in is first with the matchmaker. Let's go ahead and change that to true. And essentially what we were doing is we were saying now to use a matchmaker. And the second thing that we need to do is to provide the IP address of the matchmaker. So if I go to my matchmaker server and get the IP address of it, I know that it is 3.126.9.48, which I've now entered there. And I'll go ahead and save these changes. And then let's go back to the root folder of our Unreal Engine build. And let's start both the signaling server and the Unreal Engine. Okay, now if we navigate back to the matchmaker, we can see what's happened. is the matchmaker is now actually registered that streaming server as an available connection. And again, the way that we did that was we modified the signaling server to first of all tell it to use a matchmaker by setting that key value in the JSON config to true. And then we added the IP address of that server, which you can see right of the matchmaker server. And that allowed us to connect the signaling server to the matchmaker. Let's go ahead and do this exact same thing on the second server. And I'll do that by, I'm now navigated to the second server. I will again open up the build files. Let's go to the our name of our Unreal Engine project. Then I'll go to samples, pixel streaming, web servers. Again, I'll go to signaling web server. And again, I will go to Notepad so that I can modify the config file by opening it in Notepad. I will select all files and then double click on the config. And let's also change this on our second streaming server to use matchmaker to true. And let's also enter in the IP address of our matchmaker, which is 3.126.9.48. Okay, after that's done, I'll go ahead and click save. And then let's go back and start the signaling server and the UE app on our second streaming server. And let's check again with the matchmaker to see what's happened. And we can see now we have our second streaming server, both identified by their IP addresses that they're ready to use. Okay, so before we actually stream, let's just think what we did on the back end. So now we have a matchmaker running, and that matchmaker is responsible for redirecting requests for streaming to the user. We also have both the signaling servers running on both of our streamers, and we have configured the signaling servers so that they are now able to communicate with the matchmaker, which the matchmaker has registered the streamers. All right, so now the next thing that we need to do is let's go ahead and start streaming. The first thing I will do is I will open up a browser on my first device, and we need to enter in the IP address of the matchmaker, not the streaming server. Because again, the matchmaker is the one that's going to be responsible for orchestrating the connections. So I go to my browser tab, and this time I enter in the IP address of the matchmaker. I also enter in port 90 because if you recall, the matchmaker is listening on HTTP port 90, so I need to make sure that I also add that in. So when I've entered in the IP address of the matchmaker as well as :90 for the port and press enter, then we will see that what has happened is we have been redirected to the first streamer's IP address, which you can see right here. So again, this sort of shows what the matchmaker does. It just receives a request and then it redirects you to the streamer, and then you connect directly with the streamer. So I'll go ahead and click to start, and I am now streaming on my first device, which is great. And now let's actually connect the second device. And what you can see on my screen is I have the browser open on my second device. And again, I'm going to enter in the IP address of the matchmaker as well as the port. And I'll go ahead and press enter. And once I do that, it will take me to the matchmaker page. And you may have to wait a second, and then you see that it has now redirected me to the second streaming server. So now, if I click to start, then you can see that I am now streaming unique sessions at the same time to multiple devices. If you're looking for scalable, dedicated client sessions, Eagle 3D Streaming provides a fully integrated matchmaker. Clients connect to a single URL, and our system automatically routes them to an available streaming server. No need to configure your matchmaker manually. Everything is handled out of the box by Eagle's system. Before we wrap up, I just want to go over a couple of important things with the matchmaker so you're aware of how the technology works. I have, as you can see right here, I have two tabs open and I have two streamers. So if I try to enter in the matchmaker address again, then I receive this notification that all streaming hosts are busy. If we go to the matchmaker itself and take a look, the matchmaker actually gives us some information. It says no empty series servers are available and that it's trying to connect. So if I were to actually close one of the connections and then wait a little bit, then it will actually redirect me now to it. So this is what is helpful about the matchmaker is it makes sure that only the number of people that are requesting streaming are able to stream based on the number of servers available. What the matchmaker is not able to do is it does not prevent you from connecting to the streamers directly. So for example, if I then enter in the IP address of the streaming server, then I now am able to connect directly to that streaming server, and I now have two instances of that of the feed being received. So just keep this in mind when you're using the matchmaker, and when you're sharing URLs with individuals. Only share the URL of the matchmaker with your clients to make sure that they actually don't have the direct URL to the streaming server, because then that means that they'll be able to connect directly whenever they want. So that's just kind of important to mention related to the technology of the matchmaker. Another important note is um, as of Unreal Engine 5.5, the Matchmaker has been discontinued. So if you need Matchmaker, there's a few ways you can do it. One is you can use UE 5.4 or earlier, or you can just grab the source code from this repository and use it for your later versions of Unreal if you need to work in 5.5 or 5.6 or what have you. Okay, thank you everyone for your time. This is Quintin Anderson with Eagle 3D, and today I've gone over how to pixel stream shared or unique sessions simultaneously. Please be sure to like and subscribe, and we will see you on the next video.
Visit us at eagle3dstreaming.com and follow us on social media for more insights.